Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world today. My name is Hannah Leibus. I am one of the CEO and founders of She Rises Studios, and today I am super excited to bring on Lisa and Jesse Ferrell from the book collection, How You Leave Them Feeling. And I'm super excited to talk to these two because this is actually a book that we have been sharing within the She Rises community, and just me personally to every single person that I know. So I thought, what a better way to get everyone's attention, but to bring you both on so we can talk about this book and why it's so important, why people need to read it, and everything in between. So good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Do you want to take just a couple minutes just to kind of talk about who you are, what you both do? And then I have some really incredible questions to ask you.
You want to start, Jess?
If you would like for me to,
Okay.
we'll answer the question actually of what we do, how what we do serves others versus even what we do. And we have gained the opportunity to every day that it is a work day, and we wake up, we know we're going to be in action. We gain the opportunity to help free others from their concerns. Freedom of their concerns. Oftentimes, people have concerns and so forth, and they don't even know where to start, what question to ask, let alone finding the right answers. So we get an opportunity to do that, and then if they allow us to elevate, depending on where they want to go with that, then we seek to inspire and empower them to live their highest vision. Of course, after establishing what that vision is, and that's what we get to do every day, all day, whether we're doing it one to many from the stage, whether there may be 50 people, 500, 1,000, 2,000 people in the audience, or one-on-one, personal or professional development coaching sessions.
Wonderful. What about you, Lisa?
Well, my division is Lisa Listen, and I love to empower and let women live and design their best lives now. And so many women have a low deserve level, or maybe a disease to please, or maybe have a problem saying no. I think, I know for a fact that I fell into that trap, and it took me years to elevate beyond that. And I believe there's a need and a want, and that's where I love working with women and having breakthroughs so that they have their aha moments.
Wonderful. So you both co-authored How You Leave Them Feeling, and it is a book collection. So I want to make sure that our listeners and viewers understand that. So when you look up How You Leave Them Feeling, there is a book collection, meaning there's more than one. The one that we're going to talk about today, though, is the one with the yellow cover. And I think that's the easiest way to kind of decipher them.
Yes.
I personally grabbed all of them, and I'm currently in the yellow book collection, in the chapter of building relationship equity.
Oh, nice.
And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. But before we do that, I had read each and every page of each of the books and the forewords. And my first question is, how did you determine who you wanted to write your forewords in your books, and who were they?
I'll let you go with the first book.
Well, the first one was actually, I think there are no accidents. There's certain things that happen in life that are tragic, that are difficult to handle, that are massive loss or losses of different kinds. But oftentimes we like to refer to things as what was an accident. Well, the person that came into our life, and that's exactly how it happened. He came into our life to write the foreword to the first book. In fact, let's show. I'm not sure who's going to get a chance to see this, so we'll show you a copy of that. So just so they can see the difference with the burst in the background. The How You Leave Them Feeling is like a burst of great fresh air. So your ultimate key to personal and professional success is the first one. And the person who wrote the foreword to this, I was invited into the circle by a client at the time. His name was Derek Elliott. He owned a resort in the Dominican Republic. He's Canadian. And he invited me and said, by the way, Louis Gossett Jr. is going to be there. I really want you to meet him. I think you two would hit it off well. So Louis Gossett Jr. came from Malibu, and I came from Vegas, and we landed in the Dominican Republic at the same time for a week. And I didn't mention anything at first, but the more we connected and the more time we spent, the more of an amazing, seamless connection we had.
Was it a romance?
Well, it started out as just as a handshake, and then a connection, and then a relationship building thing on the professional side. Then it slid into a bromance.
Okay, just checking.
It slid into the bromance before we left the Dominican Republic, where they call it, for short, they say the DR. And so Louis Gossett Jr. wrote this forward, and we teamed up. And you know what's so cool about this? Well, he lived a pretty blessed life.
Mhm.
He just left the earth
Yeah.
the end of last month. And so I started thinking more and more about some of the things we've done with him. And I thought, I think I recorded that session. I think I recorded that session that I had with him when we were, working through how to do the forward. And so I went to my closet, and thank God I have a bit of an organized space. I went to this old cassette, and it said Louis Gossett Jr. and Jess Talk. So I go, okay, I don't know what's on, and I don't even have a cassette player anymore. So I went to a professional, and I was patching pictures, and I had them remove it from the cassette and drop it into a file so I could check it out. Guess what it was? It was a series of conversations, and the bulk of it was Louis Gossett Jr. and I going back and forth as to the style of how he would write that and the content of what he had the content part, but he was needing guidance and direction on how to actually write a forward because he had never done one. And I literally have the recorded version of Louis Gossett Jr. and I going back and forth, dialing in the forward for this first book.
And how did that leave you feeling when you heard his voice after what?
17 years.
17 years. And how did that leave you feeling?
Well, I'm going to say it like they would say it in my neighborhood. Left me feeling like King Chakabobo.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. He was an extraordinary, intelligent man, very gifted. I think it's such an honor that you were able to find that, but also have him write this extraordinary foreword in the book. Now, for the next book, the one that we're talking about today, Building Relationship Equity, who and how did you choose your foreword for that book?
We went back and forth, and we're like, who do we know that, has a great following, that's an influencer, that, maybe if they did the forward to the book, that could influence and help us sell books. It really didn't matter in the end who that person is. It really just came down to the fact, what kind of fit would fit with this book? And Jesse's sister, Cherie, is a family and marriage therapist. It's about relationships, and she's got a whole different spin on relationships. What about your sister? She has a whole story in and of itself.
It is.
She didn't think she was as smart as Jesse. She had several conversations when Jesse helped her believe that they're from the same parents. She's got the same intelligence, and she went on to go to college and get her degree, her master's. Is she got the PhD?
She's just a fraction away. She's still on it. She's a fraction away from getting the PhD. And to Lisa's point, it came literally from one conversation. She happened to be visiting. We were having some conversations, but when she was visiting here in Las Vegas, was picking her up to take her from where she was staying over to my other sister's home. And she was in a boo-hoo-hoo sort of mood about having lost her job, and she didn't have credentials. She didn't have initials behind her name, so she couldn't get rehired in her field of choice. And as I'm not as smart as you, I go, whoa, wait a minute. First off, we have the same parents. You have the same mommy and the same daddy. We came from the same space. I am no smarter than you. Quit telling yourself, and I'm going to clean it up because in case you share with people that want to hear clean language, I say quit sharing that malarkey, but I use some other words, and go home and sit down and figure out what it's going to take to actually work through the process. It was about a 3-minute conversation. She went home, just like Lisa says, did the homework to figure out what it would take, did the work to get her bachelor's degree, stepped up to her master's degree, and now she's about ready to get a PhD, higher than the highest degree that I have.
Wow.
People that thought she couldn't do it because she was watching her big brother. Oh, he's got these multiple degrees and he's Mr. Smarty Pants and I am a nothing. No, it ain't about what's out there. It's about what's in here.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, they had a very conversation just last night about her writing the foreword, ironically enough.
Wow.
Because what I said to her, I asked her how she felt about it. And she basically, to shorten this up, she said she felt uncomfortable. She felt not worthy. She couldn't believe of all the people that Lisa and Jesse know that you guys picked me. Why me? And she had some struggles writing. So I was assisting her, but so I said to her, I said, I'm going to chill your backside. I said, I'm going to share something. I used other words. And I said, I'm going to send you something. I'm going to mark where to start listening to the recording. So I marked at the 25-minute mark towards the end. She's here. Louis Gossett Jr. was struggling like she was to see, hey, a guy of that nature, I need to give myself a break.
Right.
Just
So
like
you left her feeling inspired.
Yes.
Which goes back to what we're talking about, how you leave them feeling. That's building relationship equity right there, especially between siblings.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable. I left her feeling cold too, because she's going to get goosebumps when she listens to that.
And worthy, like I said earlier, so many women don't believe or tap into the power that each one of us have. When we realize that we're actually unstoppable and tap into that power, that's when this world is really going to elevate.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah. Right. I think what I find so fascinating about the book so far is one, that it was co-authored by husband and wife, which that in itself is can be both joyful and also, it can also be where you both are building a relationship within a relationship within a relationship, both business, personal, professional. And I know that it would be hard for me to try to do something like that with my husband, because one of us is bossy and the other is sassy, and I'll let you figure out who that is in that. When you're creating a book called How You Leave Them Feeling, it also has to be internally between the both of you. So that was one thing, listening to Audible. And for those who are watching and listening, this book is in Audible. This book is in hardback on Amazon. So that was one thing that stood out to me. And then what I've done is I've broken it down chapter by chapter by chapter. I've gone back, listened, gone back again, listened to something else. And it's kind of how I read my books. But there was something that you wrote in this book in chapter 3, Building Relationship Equity. And it was like within the first 2 minutes of the opening of this chapter, brick and mortar versus click and order. And I was like, talk about goosebumps. Woo! Because that is what we are in today. And how we leave them feeling in that brick and mortar versus click and order is major disconnect. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. Yes.
Well, yeah, that was an inspiration that we borrowed from another inspirational speaker as well. That saying, move from brick and mortar to click and order, and a lot of people don't realize that, but that is a big major of our society. Funny you should even bring that up, because Lisa and I went to Lisa we were both tired, but Lisa was completely wiped out yesterday because she had done so much work that's not in her field of study and not in her desire to do, but she made herself do this work because we had an RFP due for a client, and she knew that I was multitasking on a number of other major things as well with deadline drip. So she said, I'm taking it on. And I said, let's go to the movie. We went to the movie and we saw a wonderful true life story movie. And I was standing outside the movie theater and I'm looking at the box office. They built a box office, but they don't man the box office anymore.
Automated.
It's click and order.
Yeah.
And so I did a tiny 20-second video, and I videoed the empty box office, beautiful setup inside of the theater, inside of Red Rock Hotel Casino. And I talked about we must be able to adapt and change and shift and
Mhm.
and it's like the AAA concept we talk about in the book, which I'm not going to talk about now, but we talk about what is our attitude about the way things are now. You
Mhm.
can't go up there and buy a ticket from someone. You got to figure out how to do it, electronically, or it doesn't happen.
And it's constantly changing.
And it's more and more that I went to we were out of town on another speaking engagement in Fallon, Nevada. I was starving. I went to Taco Bell. Well, there were people hovering and enjoying their company that were workers in the back. They don't come to the front anymore. You got to order it online
Mhm.
inside the store
And the
to
kiosk.
get a Taco Bell.
Mhm. Yeah.
Think about Blockbuster. We've got Netflix now, and Blockbuster went away. You talk about click and order. I mean, everything is just on the cell phone, literally. And that's why you see everyone walking around like this and not even looking up or talking to people anymore because of the changes of
Yeah.
evolving so quickly.
So how does that intertwine to you naming the chapter building relationship equity? When you're talking about that brick and mortar to click and order, how you leave them feeling in that equity that you're speaking of, what can we do as human beings overall to kind of bring the connection back, so that we are left feeling inspired, educated, all those different things that you talk about throughout each of these books?
I think the number one thing we can do is to realize it's an inside game. It's
Mm.
an inside game, not an outside game. The things outside of us are even internally going to change, but the things outside of us that are outside of our control are going to shift and change. How is that impacting you on the inside?
Mhm.
Building relationship equity starts with self. Build the best relationship equity that you can with self. Get to know yourself. I can't build a great relationship with Lisa if I have a terrible relationship with myself because I'm going to be intermittent and all over the map. I'm going to be more consistent, and she's going to know what she can accept. Lisa can tell you exactly what she can expect from me. She can read me like a book, and I can read her like a book. She'll walk by our office, and she'll look, and just the look on my face lets her determine whether she's coming in the office or she's going to keep on strolling.
I think that's just something that we as married couples even know as well. And it is from, yeah, it's that personal knowledge. So get to know yourself. Um, how would you say an individual could do that? What are some ways that you would advise?
The first step is to look on the inside. First, take an open look on the inside. The second step would be to determine what is that? What is it that you see? What are you taking in? And by the way, if you're confused about it, look inside your tightest, most closest inner circle and ask them what they see inside of
Mhm.
you. Not that you need their opinion, but if you're stuck and fumbling and you're not sure, you're not used to doing it, you might need some help looking at that. If for some reason you don't come to the answers there, enough good answers, which I think you could, uh, we're not trying to sell anything, but there are a number of different assessments you could take, personality assessments, to get a sense of what your native personality is or what you've grown into. Lisa and I, we focus on the color code personality system by Dr. Taylor Hartman. And it gives you 4 distinctions of your what they call the driving core motives. Driving core motives is why you do what you do.
Mm.
When we understand why we do what we do, we understand who we are and why we are.
Mhm.
When you understand why other people do what they do, you understand them as well as they understand themselves. And so those 4 distinctions are red, blue, yellow, and white. Reds are motivated by the power of getting things done. They like to get from point A to point Z, as efficiently as possible. Do you want to take it from there on the white, blue, and yellow, Liz?
Whites are motivated by inner peace and they dislike conflict. And yellows are motivated by fun. And blues, they seek to be understood. They love intimate conversations, and they're very loyal. So what helped us in our relationship when we first took the color code was Jesse thought we were the same, and it was then that he realized that I'm a primary white followed by a blue, but I don't like conflict and confrontation. And if he would come to, okay, I need this right now. Well, that's pushing me further down, and I'm not and work within, and then I'm having to process longer. But for him, knowing that I'm a processor, he'll just say, hey, I need this. Let me know when you can get it to me, which takes the heat off. And
or I'll say, get it to me when it's best for you. If there's a deadline, I'll say, the deadline per John Smith is 5 days from now, but you take your time. We've got 5 days. Really, that's a nice way of saying, don't forget there's a deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Just that one switch in our relationship was a game changer. And for the first time, really, when I took it, I got to know what made me tick as a person. When you read the assessment, you're like, wow, that explains why I act that way. It's not like putting you in a box, but it certainly lets you understand some of the ways that you behave, because you fall into that category, and your driving core motive is inner peace.
So how can you build relationship equity if you don't have this intelligence that we're talking about? If you don't have the knowledge of this, I'll give you a couple more quick ones. So that was personal between Lisa and I, and it's so true. I won't name names, but there are a couple folks that tested out. No, I don't like using the word tested. That took the assessment, and their results said that their biggest piece of the pie, you get a pie chart that gets the red, blue, or white, was yellow. And I'll give you the first one. The first one, when I'm communicating, his yellow percentage of the pie is 72% yellow. That's that's 3/4 of the pie.
Yeah, it is.
Whenever I'm dealing with him and we're doing a meeting, I don't interrupt him. I acknowledge. I do what you just did. You just did it. You just did. Mm-hmm. You just acknowledged me, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm. That's it. And I'm taking notes.
You're listening. Mm-hmm.
And I'm taking notes because if I attempt to create a volley with him, now I don't know what I was going to say. Now I forgot what I was going to say. He gets goofy because his brain thinks that way.
Right.
So then after the call, I said, by the way, we had a wonderful call today. Here are 5 questions I wanted to run by you. Well, they're the same questions I had before, but I knew we couldn't take them at the time because it would interrupt his thought process. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's one. Here's another one. Gentleman comes to town, and on his way into town, he changes. Like, our schedules are really full. Okay, he changes the appointment that we're going to connect 4 times before he gets here. And I know we're not done yet. When he gets here, he's going to change it again. Sure enough, he gets here, he changes it again. You know why? Because yellow are popping from this to that to this to that to this to that. And I know that. So
shiny penny.
Yeah, so I don't put any pressure on him to do things my way. Mm-hmm. I want to keep a great relationship and build relationship equity with that person. I'm doing it in the fashion that he needs to have it. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, it's like you're number one, you pointed out listening. So you're listening to whoever you're talking to, whether it's a client, your wife, a family member, you're listening. So then you're able to, take mental note, physical note, whatever that looks like, and they're being heard. There's no interruption. So you're giving them that space and that respect to talk, and you're fully listening. And then it's actually what we used to call back in the olden golden days, a conversation.
Right.
Yeah. It's not a debate. It's a conversation. So I talk, you listen, you talk, I listen. And then we go, I noticed you talked about the first step, looking inside. Who am I as a person? Next step, you said taking an assessment, really understanding like what makes me tick.
Yes.
Third step, listening to another person. Well, just in those 3 steps, how do you think that person is left feeling and the relationship between you and that person?
I'll tell you how they're left feeling. They don't want to let you go.
Right.
Yeah.
It literally happens to us all the time, even with strangers. Mm-hmm. Tell them what happened on our walk yesterday when we went into that poo-poo shishi store.
Poo-poo shishi?
The fancy. That's short for fancy.
Well, we were talking to one of the guys that worked at the store, and it was a great conversation. It was such a great conversation. The owner of the store came out and he started like chiming in and talking and this and that. We were there for 2 hours exchanging stories with these guys. It's a memorabilia store, and they were fascinating. But the connection, because we allowed the volley, we allowed them to talk and we talked. It was a nice volley back and forth because some people just throw up and they don't let you talk, and you get lost. You physically turn it off because you're done. That's why it's so important to have a conversation and go back and forth instead of just being talked at.
She's so, yeah, we like to call it a volley, and she's so spot on. In fact, I didn't agree with him, and I didn't try to beat him up or challenge him, but he was talking about it's good for athletes to be cocky, and I go, I don't think you have to be cocky to be a good athlete. So I start naming names, and he said, no, I got proof that he is cocky. And I got proof that So we start going back and forth. I go, listen, if I were an athlete, is the athlete at that level, I think there's a space for confidence. People are attracted to people that are confident. Confidence. They're not attracted to people that are cocky.
But then he gave the example of when Kobe Bryant was 18. He was playing with Shaq.
Yeah.
And he was telling Shaq how to play, right? It's this 18-year-old kid, and he's telling this seasoned person how to play. And he goes, I think that was cocky. I said, I think it was necessary for him to stand his ground and not be, run over. And he did what he needed to, and look how successful he became. I think there's a time and a place to throw your weight down, whether it's perceived as cocky or not. I think it's like, making a stance that you're not going to be messed with.
But even so, the proprietor of this store was strongly in his conviction. And they spent a lot of time with a lot of athletes, so they know a different logic of that set than I would know. But we did not agree with each other, but it was done in such a fashion. I can't pull the guy's words, and Lisa might be able to, but after about 20 minutes into this, he says, you have a way with words. Right?
Yeah. He goes, what do you do for a living? He goes, I should have known. I should have known.
Because even though we were battling each other, it wasn't a spit fight, or it wasn't a, turn you back and they cold cock you over the head with something. It was a man on man, one on one, and it didn't put him off guard. Building relationship equity, you should practice it all the time, not just with your inner circle. I was practicing with that guy because we weren't on the same page. Tell them what kind of relationship equity we built with them when they had their next, signing of superstars there. And then what did they say?
They said, we want you guys to come to our VIP party. And I said, in less than 2 hours, we've already earned VIP status. He goes, yes, you have.
That's amazing.
Because we set up the ability to respond. Most people just react. And when you react, it's really quick with no thought. When you respond, it usually takes thought to respond.
And you're fully listening, because a lot of people are listening not to respond, but they're thinking about what they're going to say next. So oftentimes it's good to say, let me check for understanding. If I understand you correctly, you said ABC. No, I said AZB. We hear something or we're not actively listening, so we miss the entire concept.
So when you were writing this book together, what would you say one of your biggest goals for your readers would be?
When we're writing the book together, one of our biggest goals that we wanted to read it. Do you know? Do you have one?
Well, what prompted us to write it was COVID. So we knew there were a lot of
this nature of the book.
Broken relationships because people were thrown together, didn't know how to necessarily be in a home 24/7 together. There were a lot of divorces. There was a lot of domestic abuse. And some friends of ours were sitting at dinner and they said, you guys have a model relationship and the world needs your secrets. You need to write them down and you need to share them with the world. And that's what prompted us to write the book. And the rest is pretty much history.
So, and that's a good front end of the question to answer the question. That I think the full question answered is that we believed I'm going to use the word recipe. we believe we had a clear recipe for success for those that are looking to improve the quality of their relationships, whether it's husband and wives, children with parents, relatives across the board, from aunts, uncles, and cousins, bosses, friendships, colleagues. We believe we had the universal recipe because we spend so much time in all those areas. We spend that time with family, we spend that time with friendships, we spend that time with colleagues, we spend that time with bosses, and so forth and so on. And we get a full people. We like to say in our coaching program, we create a safe place for people to come and tell the truth.
I love that. So, this book talks about so many different aspects of the listening, the understanding, how you leave them feeling, how you're left feeling, because it's both ways, right? So if there's one thing that you could tell any person who's watching today that is going to grab this book to read it or listen to it, would you say that what you've developed in the system through the books and through this one in particular, you saw that there was a need for change, right? COVID was happening. You're seeing these disconnects. So there's a behavior pattern that comes up, right? So with reading this book and having the resources you've created, would you say that this is a change that takes time? Would you say it's a thing that takes time? It's not like what you said, that brick and mortar, click and order, but this is actually something that you are building and teaching your clients, your readers. People always want like that instant change, that instant gratification. And that's another reason why I like the book. And I feel like this question is going on and on. So let me sum it up. What I mean is, if a reader is going to listen or read this book, or both, which I would encourage both, I want the readers to understand that what you've written in here is so important, and that it isn't meant as an instant gratification. You're guiding them. It's like you're rewiring every habit.
That's right.
That's how I'm interpreting what I've read so far. That what you've written in this book can help any individual. It's not just business. It can be used anywhere.
And let me just give one example. The first person that read the book has been in our world for 15 plus years. And when she said, I just read the book and it was very profound. Can we go to lunch? I would love to discuss this with you. And I'm absolutely. She said, what you guys wrote in this book did more for me and my husband in the last 10 years of going to marriage counseling. This book was profound for our relationship. She said, Philippe will be reading it next, but he will not be going beyond each chapter until each exercise has been completed, because that's how he works and how he rolls. So if, Rome wasn't built in a day. If you want to work in your relationship, it's always going to be work. You got to work to keep the integrity there, the love there. Because if you get copacetic, complacent, nothing's going to change. And if you want to work on it, but Jesse doesn't, it's not going to ever work, because both people have to do the work. So in the long answer around that is, that was what one person said after 10 years of going through therapy. This book did more for us than 10 years of therapy.
And that's super powerful. And I'll say that, and that's a great case study to share. I'll say that in further answering your question, I believe it's on a scale of a chasm. And I believe that not everyone in the world that will pick up this book will be in the same place.
Right.
Certain people have done considerable work on their own outside of this book. Okay? And there's certain people that have done no work at all. There's certain people that are fast learners and they adopt and adapt quickly. And there's some people very resistant, even if it's the right thing to do.
Right.
So when you look at that chasm of people, you will say some people will have the ability to very quickly pick up on this movement, and they'll be reconciling and or matching up with some of the education and things that they've been taught through other different disciplines or whatever. So they may absorb it faster. There may be some people that get through this entire book and go, I don't get it. I don't get it. Because their personality, their character, and their life circumstances, they resist new intelligence.
Or they already know it all.
Or they think they already know it all.
Mm.
Exactly. So we would say that how you receive this book, or in the collection of How You Live the Feeling, is going to be staged on a chasm based on where you're at when you come to the intelligence. Worst case scenario is you pick this up, you read it, and it reconfirms all the key things you already know. And maybe some nuggets in here that take you just a little bit higher. So you're going to go from people going, okay, this concept has been right in front of me my whole life, and I missed it. Like Lisa and I see that we're on a mission to what we would like for this to become a worldwide movement. But that's not based on us. That's based on the receivers out there, how they receive it. There's intelligence that came out into this world that people put together and put out and publish. And for us, that's just amazingly historically large what they've become. But that wasn't because of the people that did it. That was because of the people that receive it.
Right.
Right. What are your thoughts?
I'm like, yes. I'm nodding because I get it. My whole heart and mind feel that this entire book is all about the emotional intelligence aspect. And a lot of us don't realize that it's a muscle that has to be constantly worked on, developed, utilized.
Yes.
And the more we do it, the more we practice the emotional intelligence piece, the more that we're aware of how we see people, how we speak to them, how we react, the more we will be aware of how we leave them feeling and vice versa. So it's like you took it back to what I call the olden golden days. Like it goes back to conversation. It goes back. It's actually, like you said, how you leave them feeling is a movement. I think it's a lifestyle.
Yes, yes, it is. It is. It isn't like that. We our example from tooling around on our walk yesterday, our lifestyle overlapped into the lifestyles of those two individuals, and they did not want to let us go. And by the way, they weren't the two people that needed us. Mm-hmm. These are pretty affluent people, and they've done extremely well professionally and personally in their lives. And they're connected with celebrities and movie stars and athletes and all this kind of stuff. They didn't really need us, but they wanted us. That was the difference. And so, when I think about this, let me ask you and Lisa about this question. When you think about this, when you think of How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, when he wrote that book, do you think when he wrote the book, his How to Win Friends and Influence People, that he thought, well, this should sell millions of copies? No. That book has sold millions and millions of copies.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be interesting to know what championed his cause, or who championed his cause that made it explode like that.
I can't remember the person that he was working for, because I've read it maybe 15 years ago. But he talks about how he got started, not almost to the answer what you said, but there was a person above him that he went to work for free, just to learn from, and that's what helped build all this whole, what we call How You Leave Them Feeling concept. He calls it How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's how to influence people and win friends, or whichever way that goes. Now I'm so excited, I'm getting confused about it. But he didn't know that became a movement. Mm-hmm. It was really huge, but he didn't do it. The people that received the information did. Mm-hmm.
I believe that, and we have someone asking, what is the title of the book? So the title of the book is How You Leave Them Feeling. There is a book collection. There's the yellow one that we're talking about today, and then there is the red one. I recommend both. And again, they're both available in Audible and hardback on Amazon. There's a blue one. And I really think that, so I like to show but not tell all, because I really do want people to do their their due diligence and read it themselves, right?
Yes.
So a few other things that pointed out to me when I've been and like I mentioned, how I read, I go back and forth. And so, excuse me, because I have to put on the eyeballs. So chapter 1, living life by design, was an extraordinary like eye opener in the sense of, wow, we can do that. Wow, there's freedom in that.
Yeah.
Whoa. Right.
Yeah.
So all the light bulbs in my head are going ding, 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 ding. And then immediately I'm thinking, wow, this is something that anyone who I'm in contact with, I can say, start living your life by design. And if you're not sure where to start, here, go to chapter 1 and how you leave them feeling. Then I was like, oh, here we go. Chapter number 2. Here it is. Are you ready? Trusting your gut instinct. How many times have we as human beings, you feel this thing, it's a real thing, trusting your gut instinct, but it doesn't stop there. Then you go right into relationship equity. How do you build that equity? You talk about the love and marriage, the special bonds. Like there's so many different aspects of this book that you brought to life and gave a perspective that really, truth be told, it's almost magical how you did it. And so that's why I keep telling people, read these books, because every single one of us needs to develop our emotional intelligence to the highest level that we possibly can.
Yeah.
You know what would happen if we all did the work? The world would look
Amazing.
different. There would be
I love what you're saying. If we all just did the work, I love, Hannah, you said if we all just did the work, because the impetus and the root for the concept of idea came from chapter 1. By the way, we weren't writing the book at the time, but I was in the middle of a coaching session. A client had been on the coaching program for 6 years, 6 consecutive years.
Mhm.
And we were going into year 7. And I thought, I'm listening to her, and I'd heard the whole story a number of times, countless.
Mhm.
And when she finally stopped to pause, I said, we'll call her Tammy. I said, Tammy, when are you going to start living your life by design instead of happenstance? And I thought, man, that's powerful. So then I wrote myself a note after that, because I thought, now that's a concept. But it was through someone else that I saw this happenstance kind of living, when this person was way more capable of well beyond happenstance. Very bright, very intelligent, very well put together, tons of experience. I mean, eclectic experience even. But why are you just sitting around waiting for things to just happen? Why don't we design what you want for yourself and your life? That's where the idea came. That whole quote came from. I didn't read it in the book. The quote just came to me because I'm watching her going, when is she going to live her life by design instead of happenstance? You can design this. Maybe not be a perfect design. You can tweak the design as you go, but what are you just sitting around waiting for things to happen?
Well, it was an aha moment for her as well. She never forgot it, and that one thing stuck with her, and she did something about it.
Well, here's what I say to and this is why I felt it was so important to bring you on the platforms, because I think everyone needs to live a life by design. I think everyone needs to learn how to utilize that emotional intelligence muscle. And I just really felt that the book collection is such an exquisite way to teach, to lead. But you do have to do the work.
Yes.
And, I would love to see you both. This should be something where you both are traveling and just sharing this to the capacity of the small rooms to the biggest rooms, because it would help individuals, it would help companies, it would help in so many different aspects. And that's why, and just for transparency purposes, I was very blessed to meet Lisa in a room, in a mastermind with some extraordinary women, and the relationship just kind of went from there. And how I was left feeling that day when I first walked into that room, I walked in heavy, which I expressed. My work load is insane. And I just walked in and I was like, oh, I don't even know if I have the mental capacity to do
Be here today.
to do this. And listening to her and listening to some of the other women in the group, and just the connection that was made, I left feeling lighter. I left so impressed, from what I heard and from what I learned, and here we are. So with that said, the book is called How You Leave Them Feeling. The collection is How You Leave Them Feeling. Audible, hardback, I personally invested in because I felt I needed to start leaving people feeling better, myself. So if I can do this, anyone can do this. Anyone in the world. And it's okay to ask for help and learn from people like Jesse and Lisa. It's important.
Can I say something? Can I say something about what you're saying, Hannah? About it's important to ask for help and you can learn from others. We were watching this piece on Luther Vandross.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just an amazing singer. And I just thought he just popped out of the womb as a success. And the interviewer was going to talk to him about, being, he says, you were booed off the stage of the Apollo. He says, no, I wasn't booed off the stage. He says, I competed 4 times and 4 times I did not win. He says, what that taught me was career paths like this are a series of rejections that you've got to overcome. And he says, everybody needs someone else to help champion their cause. Luther Vandross needs someone else to help champion his cause. He's amazing, right? And so
Roberta Flack, David Bowie,
and Dionne Warwick.
Yes.
He says, if it wasn't for those 3, you wouldn't even know my name. They championed his cause. So being good enough is not good enough. You've got to be willing to ask and receive the help. You cannot do it all by yourself, even if you have great platinum pipes like Luther Vandross. So your point is extremely valid. You've got to be able to ask and receive the help. And if people were to jump into the How You Leave Them Feeling collection, either book or all books, they're going to find passages in there. They're going to find recommendations. They're going to find strategy. They're going to find exercise. They're going to find case studies, real life case studies that are inside of these books that could profoundly change where they're at and get them. They can go from not so good to a plateau of getting started to be good. You can go from good to great. You can be great. How do you sustain being great? Everyone can be served.
But it's a very simple notion. Even if you don't read the book, if you just keep the title in mind, it's all about how you leave them feeling in everything you do. Everyone you talk to, personally, professionally, at the bank, at the grocery store, leave them feeling good and leave everything better than you found it.
Exactly.
I most people who know me, I'm such a book junkie. Like, I love to read. Knowledge is everything. I learn something new from every single book I pick up or listen to. And what I keep going back to in this book collection is, you said good to great, right? Good to great, right? Because we can all be great. But in reading this, and I don't know if people know who Robin Sharma is, but he's someone who I've read all his books.
Mm-hmm.
It's like spot on, in alignment. And that's what this book reminds me of. That's what this book is about. And that's huge. I wish there were more books like this and more people like this, because again, if we did the work, if we actually did the work, it would look so different.
Absolutely.
So my challenge, and I'm going to have you back on several times if allowed, because I do want to show, but I don't want to tell it all, because I do want people to do the work. I want them to see, how am I leaving this person feeling? How am I left feeling? How is this relevant in everything that I do and say, the way that I behave, that assessment that you talked about, that internal deep look inside of who am I? What makes me tick? Why do I tick that way? Why do I react that way? Why don't I react when I should? There's all these different things. And the truth is, you won't know until you do the work. So the first step of doing the work is get the book, And don't just read the chapters, but read the foreword, read the intro, read the calls to action, do the exercises that are in the book. Do it over, make it a 90-day challenge to yourself. Right. That's what I did. And see how you feel 90 days from the day you start to that day, and see if you see a difference in yourself. And then look at the relationships around you, like you said, in the rooms, and see, have things changed? Mm-hmm. How are they feeling? Right. So next time when I see Lisa in a mastermind, well, I already know how I'm going to be feeling. Excited. Yeah. You know, because I know what type of person Lisa is and how she's helping, and she listens, which is why it's called Listen. Yes. But the point is I think it's just a great collection what you have built. I'm excited to continue my deep dive. It's become a study in my classes, in my author breakout sessions. And so I just want to say thank you for joining me today. And we will have you back on, because there's a couple other chapters that I want to do a deeper dive into, if you don't mind.
Oh, we would love that. We love that. And if we can help with your team in any way, in terms of just being that signature person that pops in for 15 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever it is.
We're working on that too. Don't worry. I have lots of ideas, because I just really feel that no matter who you are, no matter where you are, this book applies to you. This collection applies to you. What's being taught in this applies to every single one of us, no matter what. So awesome. Thank you for joining me today, both of you. How can people connect with you in terms of website? Like if they want to just connect with you, not only for the book, but just in general, is there a place that we can send them to?
There is. First, we want to thank you for this time and your energy. I would say this is the most refreshing spark that we've seen in a long time from especially a professional like you. Yeah, quite frankly, you might have eclipsed all others in terms of your raw enthusiasm and excitement and eagerness for this intelligence. And you know what's going to work. It's already working with you, and you know it's going to work further. You're not even finished with it yet, and we can hear it. We can see it. I mean, anyone watching or listening to this, they can hear and feel and see your enthusiasm. And we're not paying you for this enthusiasm. This is just raw coming at us. So we want to thank you for that first.
No, thank you. It's because it's a game changer. It just, as soon as I started reading it, I was like, oh, this is going to be good. Like here goes Hannah. All in.
Well, you can find me at lisalisten.com and
jesttalk.com, jestalk.com. That way they wanted to explore, to see more about what we're about. And if you go on there, you can see up at the top right hand corner, it'll show whether you can pop on the Facebook or pop on YouTube and see some of the videos when we're on stage and different things like that. Depending on what they're looking for, there could be some intelligence out there that's really, just in small bites, can be things that can be a catalyst to something bigger for them to explore.
Absolutely.
Love it. And we'll make sure to put that in anything that we share as well. So thank you everyone for listening and watching today. We are going to do a replay on this particular interview. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to have Lisa and Jesse back on again. And we're going to talk about some other things, but how you leave them feeling. So my challenge to you is get the collection, do a 90-day challenge. Tell me how you're left feeling. I'm excited to see where this goes. Congratulations to both of you. Thank you for putting so much goodness out in the world, and we will see you both again very, very soon.
Thank you so much, Hannah.
Thank you.